Bonjour, good morning, bienvenue. Welcome once again to another live stream. This one is arguably our most discussed live stream, that is to say, cladding matters. We're talking about topics that affect, Steve, I believe it's tens of thousands of homes in the UK, tens of thousands of domiciles. But before we get into that, I'm very pleased to welcome to the show, of course, as per usual, Hamish McLeod, Sergeant Convey, our Lord and Master. Rashid Pamar, our special technology specialist, is here talking about AI within remediation. And Steve Day, of course, the buildingsafetyscheme.org, one-man battle against the powers that be, now supported by a KC, members of parliament, all sorts, lords and ladies, goodness gracious. Before we get into all of that, please, Hamish, as ever, would you start us off?
Our title this week, I should have said good afternoon to you, a glorious, glorious afternoon. And I think famously ready for a glorious weekend too. Hopefully the weather will sort of last out. I don't know how much of it can be seen from Royal Artillery Quays at the moment with all that shroud covering the building. But
the sarcophagus that it is now.
Nonetheless, our topic this week is AI in building safety. Ready or rush. Now, we've been speaking about data a good bit of this week, to be quite honest, in our sort of podcasts, and we are welcoming the advent of such a thing in the appropriate usage, but it needs to be appropriate. And what we have actually sort of found, what was being discussed earlier this week, with its application, it's very, very easy to overstate or understate and miss out important factors and also contain inaccurate factors. And in building safety and building remediation, it's clearly important that we get it right. At the moment, of course, we have a council, Greenwich Council, don't particularly want to get it right for whatever reason. They really couldn't give a monkeys, it would appear, because they're just happy to admit that there's nothing wrong with the building. That, I don't know, there's 10 I mean, it's a bit like the same thing, but there's 10 or 12 reasons why there is something wrong with the building. They've got it in writing, but they seem to, and I don't know if there's been any change there. But the fascinating thing is we've got this particular sort of week, we've got sort of an expert who can actually sort of tell us what applications can be made using the AI. But just wondering, Steve, have we got any news this week that's really burst into the frontage of all the media to say, hey, at long last, we're going to do something for residents in this particular type of building?
Yes, Steve, we could do with some good news. Welcome to the show. Go on then. Regale us that everything's fallen into place, the cards have fallen into place, and everything is go, go, go.
Well, so it is good in a sense that there's another opportunity in Parliament to do something about the PAS 9980 standard. And just to remind viewers, this standard basically has got written into the new draft, which is currently being reviewed after a public consultation earlier this year. And it's basically said if you can't find a proportionate way to fix a relevant defect, then you can mark it as done without fixing it, and you can say it's a tolerable risk. And it also says in the standard that the standard shouldn't be used where there is the principal outcome of a zero risk to life. Well, the question is, how many deaths are acceptable to the standard?
Yes, I was going to say, let's define that word tolerable. It seems one death is too many, or is it two? It's 5, maybe a few dogs. I don't know.
Well, the problem is that's the question. It's highly subjective, and in Royal Artillery Quays, we have 2 fire engineering opinions saying the highly combustible, second most combustible rating in Europe, Euro Class E, XPS panels being retained on our single escape stairs at Royal Artillery Quays, going up 16 stories. Those panels were confirmed by MHCLG as being banned on new buildings. So my question is, without a fire engineering degree, why are they allowed to remain under PAS on our existing buildings, on our single escape stair?
They're not dangerous on old buildings, Steve. They're only dangerous on new buildings. You see?
Well, I just don't think the standard really addresses this. And the insurers are not buying it either, and they've been excluded from the work for the new revision, which is also very concerning.
So hang on a moment. Your fire safety standard means that during trying to get insurance for a flat, at the moment what you are a B standard, aren't you? I can't remember what.
Yeah. So basically, the Property Mark, the big estate agent body, sent a letter into the government a couple of years ago saying the growing numbers of insurers are refusing to insure B1 rated properties, and that's the CWS1 RIC standard, which is applied to blocks of flats.
Well, then my question to you is this: if they followed the PAS 9980 and as it stands, they would still be in a B.
Yeah, B1. Yeah. Ironically, we aren't going to get past the B1, the dreaded B1. But where we are, I mean, as we're talking about AI,
what's the point of that? There's no point.
Well, the point is to limit the liability to the construction industry. That's the whole point, and then push the liability of the remaining work onto the consumer, i.e., us, and also to basically ensure that the builders, they have been made to fix all the buildings for the last 30 years via the developer contract. But the caveat is you can use this standard to work out how much work you want to do. And that's basically the caveat to what Gove puts in for the developer contracts. But
before you get into it, I'm very pleased to have on the show today is Rashid Palmer, who's a man ex IBM C-suite, and more importantly than that, a man who's made a great deal of focus as far as AI in data is concerned. Now, before I get passed over to Rashid to talk a little bit about that, data seems very disparate at the moment. There's no one place you can go to get it, right?
Well, I've given you a screenshot, Gareth. I don't know if I put it on the WhatsApp.
Can you bring it up and I'll add it into the show?
Yeah. So I'll add the image file.
You sending that?
Yeah, I'll give you a bit of background while I work on that. Please. So as we got Rashik here, what's very interesting, Rashik, is we did a big data project. Well, the campaigns did a big data project, and what it did was it basically allowed people to enter into a web page the details of the defects for their blocks around the country, and we got 748 buildings mapped around the country with the defects. And I want to see if I can share what that looks like. So I'll just add that in as an image file so you can see. There you go, Gareth.
Lovely. I'm just going to bring that on stage. There we have it.
So that's the building safety map. So we actually got a lot of detail on the defects, the status of the buildings, the waking watch, the 24/7 fire wardens all around. And what we were trying to do is, expose the scale of the problem, because the government doesn't actually want to declare how many buildings have X number of defects, so they can kind of use this PAS standard to water down the remediation that's required. And obviously, the lesser number of buildings, the lesser political pressure there is to change anything.
All right.
So there you go. So
okay, I want to pass the baton over to Rashid. Welcome to the show. Rubbish in, rubbish out, right?
Well, garbage in, garbage out has been a phrase for the IT industry for a long time. And when you look at AI, it's taking data from all kinds of sources. So you've got to really be able to understand what the provenance of the data is you're using before you look at any of the results. And there are some great examples of AI out there that has been using well-defined data sources and creating really useful results. And there's lots of examples of complete garbage that you can get.
Right. So I mean, typically in any large-scale AI project that you've seen or been involved with, what matters most? Is it having the tip-top AI tool or having clean, reliable data?
The data is always the most important thing, right? Because you're using AI to augment your own thought patterns, your analysis, and help you get to conclusions that are meaningful. Without the data being correct, the results are going to be completely meaningless, right? Because it's going to be fabricating things. And so we're talking about standards and PAS and so on. The AI out there today can be used quite effectively to be able to take multiple standards and start to say, what are the overlaps, what's the inconsistencies, what's the potential problems. We can use AI to do that kind of stuff, and we have done it in the past. Projects I've supported have ones that, for example, looked at project risk around complex projects, and then I analyzed and identified where the potential risks are based on historical data of where projects fail. That's incredibly.
AI is in the zeitgeist. One could say cladding remediation is also in the zeitgeist right now. Where do you think AI could genuinely help in such a complex area? And where should people be careful not to overpromise?
I think some of the things that Steve was showing earlier in terms of those maps, AI is incredibly valuable at looking at what the correlations are. So what do we know about the common issues? Is there common materials that were used? And can we look at the root cause of those materials and see whether there's a common pattern of actions that we could take to bring the resolution to be much more efficient and effective? So AI is great at correlation, understanding what the correlations are. It's also great at helping you look at forward playing what we know already. So if we take the cost of remediation today, can I forward project what that cost will be if we delay it for the future? What's the potential risk of harm to people? And then how do we play out those scenarios and help people understand what the implications of not doing that cladding is? Because it can be bad. And you were asking, is one death too many? Absolutely is. I would argue it is. Now, let's understand the total cost of this, because often people protect what they know because they don't know anything else. By having the right data and showing them in a way that actually the implications of not doing the things is much worse than doing things, it is a very persuasive tool that we can use in the right way, and AI can help you with that.
All right, so, but what on the flip side of that, isn't there a danger that AI makes a decision or creates a report and makes it look very competent, even when the underlying data, building data, is at best incomplete?
So this all comes back to how you use the AI, right? You've all read reports of lawyers fabricating evidence around fictitious cases which didn't actually exist, right?
Yes.
And going into court saying, "Hey, this is a case law." Actually, it's not. So it's incumbent on us to use the AI and then do the fact checking ourselves. So we can't abdicate the responsibility. That the experts who know these things should be looking at this and saying, is that right? Is that sensible? But that doesn't mean that we don't use the AI, right? We use the AI to give us some suggestions and insights and input, help us do the analysis, and then we fact check that and manage it in the way which gets us the results that are ones that we can trust and we can depend on, and we can apply our responsibility in the right way around those data.
So how do we stop AI become just another layer of complexity in an already bloody complicated remediation process?
I think ultimately it goes back to debunking quite a lot of the layers, right? There's layer on layer of regulation. Let's understand where the confusion is in those layers, and let's look towards simplification and understanding where the motivations are. There's different standards being put in place for different reasons. Some standards are there to protect the providers of solutions. Sometimes it's there to protect the consumers of those solutions. Right now, they often have conflicting bits in the middle. Do we understand what those conflicting things are? Absolutely not, because there's a fight, and that's where the legal profession has tremendous opportunity to argue the case depending upon who they're defending or who they're prosecuting. Let's start to put some clarity in that. Let's use regulatory systems to unpack and unravel some of the complexity that exists today. AI can absolutely help us do that, but we need to have the political will, we need to have the organizational will to help us do that as well, right?
Political will, Steve. There's plenty of political, but not so much will. Can you give me a response to perhaps something of Rashik saying? I mean, Rashik, so you should know, Steve is an accomplished developer and has been for some time anyway. So he
not buildings.
no building, no, but the developer of IT. Sorry, but
Yeah.
so he's been rather painfully involved with AI, one form or another, for a while. Steve, I'm just worried about the disparate nature of the data sources, especially when some people, not naming any names, looking at you, Greenwich Council, can sometimes gatekeep some of the information because they're worried that if it comes to light, suddenly there'll be their favorite master builder may be in question.
Well, I mean, we've asked multiple parliamentary questions for the data on buildings, especially below 11 meters on the defects, and they refused to give it. And interestingly, the campaign groups, the cladding campaign groups and building safety, shut down building safety map, including the Leasehold Knowledge Partnership. One of the chairman, Martin Boyd, put out a tweet saying, do not give any data to this map. You do not know what these people, and these are just residents campaigning for building safety, but you do not know what they're going to do with your data. And the campaign group shut building safety map down. And it was an utter tragedy. And this was a couple of years ago because it was mentioned in Parliament. It was used on the BBC. We were exposing all the data. And I think one of the problems with all of this is they're shutting down the data. So you can't make correlations. And then they can attack back at us. And then they can say, well, where's your data? Why do you think there's a problem?
Was it in 1984 that Big Brother fed everybody Soma to keep them quiet? There was just enough information.
I think the Ministry of Truth is definitely involved here. I think the Ministry of Truth is rewriting the past and saying the builders are actually quite good. And it's just, unfortunately, the regulations have got stricter after Grenfell, and there's nothing to see here. And you can, yeah, it's doublethink, isn't it? You're quite right. And the thing is, what we did, Rishik, is I worked with the BBC News to expose the builder defect rates using the developer contract data, and so we had some quite shocking numbers. We had like 77% of blocks of flats by Taylor Wimpey in the scope of the developer contract have got life endangering defects. 35% of the master builder Barrett.
Yeah, but hang on, Steve, and I offer this to you, Rashik. If you would you're going to buy, let's say, other makes are available. You're going to buy yourself a new Audi, and you go to the Audi dealership, and they say, yes, this is a particularly lovely model. Only 70% of them will return.
Yeah, well, and returned for life endangering defects. It's like, yeah, the brakes don't always work. You know, sometimes they'll fail, especially on steep hills. They really don't like them when you're going down at any speed. So, you know, as long as you're happy to take a 77% chance of death, you're okay. So, you know, yeah, this is what's going on. They're rewriting history, and I think, as your comment is on 1984, it's, can you hold a mutually contradictory truth as in both situations as the truth? So i.e. 1 + 1 is 2 and 1 + 1 is 3. Can you hold both of those at the
I
same
think it's more like 1 + 1 is 11. I think that's where they want it to be.
We've got
a friend of the show, Zara Olibukas, one of our tame legal eagle, says the legal profession is yet to set boundaries and regulation regarding AI. Well, that's an interesting one. No regulation.
Services. AI is, you know, I work, you know, for a bank, and we're using AI for pretty much, you know, there's a big push now for most of our PR reviews, our code reviews, and everything to be done in the first iteration by AI. But what's interesting is you got all these senior developers sitting there using a junior developer's brain, and it's coming out with junior developer code at the moment. And so that has huge repercussions because we're rewriting it all. And some of it's huge amounts of code where a good senior developer would do it in 5 lines. So, you know, the productivity at the moment is absolutely not good. And AI and introducing bugs into systems where a senior developer wouldn't have done it. So we need to be careful on Sahara's point.
Rashid, you're going to say, Rashid.
Yeah, so I think you the measure of productivity isn't necessarily the lines of code you produce. It's actually the outcomes you create. And I think the question on regulations is a massively complex topic, because a lot of this is there is so much issue around how each country is regulating AI in its own right. You've got different set of standards in China, from Europe, from UK, from US. Everybody's got a different way of thinking about this, and the regulators haven't caught up with how we should be applying this. Right? So it's a very complex landscape, very fast moving as well, and so as a developer, as an organization, you need to be mindful of the responsibility you're taking on by using this AI, because ultimately you are still going to be culpable if some of the decisions you make aren't appropriate.
Absolutely. And what I think is good about AI is using it as a kind of tool around coding rather than just writing everything. Because if you could write something in 100 lines and the AI does it in 2000, you no longer know what's going on in your own code base. And so I think using it as a tool to help you, and also debugging, it's absolutely brilliant for debugging, because we can say, right, we're seeing this strange behavior. Here's a code base. Please work out where in the code this bug is, and it will do it. And it's very good. So it's very for it as well.
There's great examples of things like building test patterns. So I've written this piece of code, help me look at all the potential failure cases and build test data for that. Fantastic at that, and it improves the productivity of testing, but also improves the quality of code, because you all of a sudden pick up problems you wouldn't have picked up in the past. So there are lots of positives here.
So what you're saying is what AI is particularly good at is mimicking disaster. Is that, am I right?
Well, I mean, I think what's be very interesting in our world is kind of like, does AI generated code across all competitors, say in banking, where there's lots of auto trading and auto pricing, will we get groupthink back to 1984? Will we all say sell when this market event happens at the same time, because all the algorithms are written by the same AI algorithms that are ultimately thinking the same way? Can we create enough randomness in our AI generated code to still have those competitive, different views of the world?
You'll end up killing the market stone dead if everybody does the same thing at the same time. You'll end up with no movement at all. No,
I've had that before, so we don't want that again.
No.
Ultimately, AI will only repeat what it knows, which is history.
Yeah.
So if you want history to repeat, use AI as much as you want. If you want to create something in the future, you need to get humans to help think about what the opportunities are and build something for the future.
There you go, Rusty. That's the first time I've heard something saying about when to use humans in the mix. Everybody's looking for when to use AI, and I think they need to reverse it. When to use humans. If you want something authentic and novel, use a human. If you want some repetition or rehash of the past, use AI. And Hamish, on that note, would you please take us home?
Well, yeah, fascinating discussion. And of course, that input that we have from Zara is very, very important. Speaking about sort of legal boundaries. But I mean, I think both Rashik and Steve have actually brought this to bear. What you need, and this is something which a lot of people are failing to understand, you do need experts. You do need those senior developers. You do need the expertise of people, Rashik, to actually sort of, first of all, be looking at it, but then ultimately you have to get together those who are experienced within the building, within the building sector and the various other sectors to look, right, is this clear? Is this right? It does not get rid of human intent, human involvement. It adds to the practicality. It takes an awful lot of work, the day-to-day work, but then it's up to the humans to read it. Is this correct? Because AI cannot decide on its own whether it's correct or not.
All nuance has to come from the human.
I mean, I just love the if all of that information that Steve's put together and all of his team was put together, and it was decided, let's have a little of this. Let us look at, and this is an indication that Rashik actually brought to us, what is going to be the result if this PAS 9980 is actually going to undermine the need for appropriate remediation, which isn't the case of Royal Artillery Quays. And in just about every other case we've actually sort of come across, the insurance is not going down. There is risk of death, and nobody's been able to apportion that. How many deaths are considered to be reasonable?
Yes, that definition of the word tolerable, Hamish, is what we're struggling with here. Thank you so much, Hamish, for finishing that up for us. As usual, Steve, very pleased to have you on board. Rashik, a bit of sanity there in the asylum. Thank you.
Gareth, can I just one point? I just wanted to say just to the viewers that we got some interesting stuff coming up. So Baroness Pinnock, the Liberal Democrat peer in the House of Lords, has just run a private members bill on remediation quality and outcome. So we'll be contributing to that and putting down suggested probing amendments for the remediation bill by Baroness Pinnock. Also, there's a Westminster Hall debate coming up on PAS 1980 and should it be used anymore. So that's Gideon Amos, who's a Liberal Democrat housing spokesman. And then we've got our work in the remediation group with Gideon Amos, Baroness Pinnock, some of the peers. And I even met with Kevin Hollinrake in Parliament. So we'll try and make a cross-party attempt to stop Labour's attempt to try to get PAS 9980 into law to close off the route to go via a remediation order to get a full remediation under the Building Safety Act. So we need to stop that happening. So so there's three big things going on shortly now. We've started the new session of Parliament to look out for.
Well, thank you one and all for taking part today, Rashik, Hamish, and Steve. And to all of you watching, this is the fourth this week of our many property podcasts. We start on Tuesday with Property Matters, Wednesday with Ipsa Kind of Magic, Thursday with Property Quorum, and we finish up with Cladding Matters on a Friday. If you want to catch any of the old ones, or if you want to replay this one, which I recommend you do because it was a good old bun fight, go and have a look at Spilling the Proper Tea, and it's all on to be found on YouTube. Please do go there. And to all of you watching right now, please remember, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. And in these troubled times, please try and look after your mental health. Until next week, bye-bye.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll polish me the moon.